Hi, everyone, and welcome again to our next Girls in Tech Rebel story. Today I have Nicole Adrians with me, and we'll be having a chat with Monique Gibson. We're all on the Girls in Tech board, advisory board, and Monique is actually our role of partnership, or has the role of partnerships director. And she's got a great story to tell that's really inspirational. So let me kick off straight away with the first question. So Monique, you've had a really interesting career path before landing in the world of tech. So you're now serving as the account executive and as the Scrum Master, dedicated to Woolworths within the Y Group. So maybe you can tell us a bit about your journey around how you got to this point.
Sure. Thanks, Claire, and hi, Nicole. I call it my circus journey, my career really, because it's been so varied. It started with finishing school, obviously, and looking at a university application and just realizing how expensive it would be to go to university and how much of really a challenge it would be for my parents to be able to afford that. And so I took a very different path. I ended up taking a job as an au pair in Italy that I got through a friend of a friend, and that was just a massive adventure. And after 5 months, then left Italy and continued traveling around Europe. I managed to work in the UK, in Austria and in Germany and in France and in Turkey and in Greece and in America, and my gap year turned into 3 years. But luckily I came home. And at that stage was then looking at university again. At that stage I was interested in physio, and also got a fright when I saw what university fees were going to cost me at that point. So downgraded and did a holistic honours diploma in massage therapy. And yes, this is a Girls in Tech interview, it will get there. But I started my first business at the age of 21, which was a massage therapy practice. And I used to go around to all the 5-star hotels of Cape Town and do their treatments. And so I learned the art of owning a business and ran that business for 3 years. And then that started a spate of other entrepreneurial ventures, a gift shop and a guest house and just car washes, you name it. And I really enjoyed that side. So the actual, what it takes to run a business. And I think it's partly why I'm so passionate around travel, is it taught me the ability to work hard and to be adaptable. So the segue into the world of tech did happen. And it happened about 8 years ago when a friend of mine's husband, who I didn't know very well, approached me to help with his startup and to build an account management team. And 3 years ago, after helping to build that business and just learning so much, and even going and doing a postgrad, so I eventually did get an education, just so that I didn't have to Google what they were talking about in the board meetings anymore. I then joined Y Group 3 years ago. And this really has been phenomenal for me in that I've landed in a team that I really love working with, and it's a software development team. I started out as an account manager, bringing that skill, and I've been able to transition into what's called a Scrum Master, which I didn't know existed. My mother is still really unhappy that it's got nothing to do with rugby. But it is, for me, a perfect example of what servant leadership is. It's a great role, and if anyone's listening to this and you've never heard about what a Scrum Master is, please go Google it. It's just a fantastic role, and it's about how you help teams work well and be really self-managed and be productive. And that's my career journey in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Fantastic. So knowing what you know today, what advice would you give your younger teenage self?
Yeah, I don't think my younger teenage self would listen, but I think if I was talking to my younger self, I would congratulate her on being so active at school, because my teenage self was very busy running and doing all sorts of things. But I think I would say it's great you're doing those things, and it's fantastic to keep that healthy body through life, to carry you through your career and the stresses that will come in life and how busy life gets. It's just that level of fitness. But perhaps forget about the accolades and forget about the awards and the provincial colours, and just, if I look now at age 43 back on the things I loved about being so active, it's not, I don't remember once crossing a finish line in first place. I remember every single kind of run I did around the golf course before high school, in the morning. And it taught me that being active first thing in the morning is a good way to start the day. And you're just more focused and more, just work is better if you've been a little bit active in the morning. And then I think the second piece of advice would be along the same philosophy, but maybe around, maybe the academic awards is, again, forget about the awards, because the reality is no one is going to remember or even care what you got for history and matric once you've got that first job. True, right?
Absolutely true.
And I'm not saying don't focus on doing well, but try and release the pride around those achievements, and try to be more interested in the people that are around you and what's happening in the world, because that kind of lesson that I learned in traveling when I was going around the world around how to be adaptable, I think that really is what's more important than saying, I've got this award and help me out here because I've got this award and I deserve this position. It's the ability to kind of go, well, I heard this, I'm listening. And so maybe there's a need here that I can address. And so actually the last bit of advice there that I give my younger self is what I'm actually giving my older self now is slow down. Because it's very difficult to listen if you're busy.
Yeah.
A multitasker who listens well, I've never met. So I guess I'd say slow down, listen. And if there's something in what you listen to that gives you an idea of what's needed, then be willing to respond. And if you need to learn something in order to be able to respond, do that. And if you can, I honestly think if you can do that, you'll find a place in society to continue contributing, and you'll find a job where you can add value.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I still
Thanks, Monique.
Myself probably would have just raised an eyebrow and been like, whatever.
I think that's good advice. Perfect advice. I'm sorry that you went around to give my teenage self some good advice. But in your opinion then, that being said, what do you think the biggest factor is that's led to your success today?
Without a doubt, I think it's my willingness to jump in the deep end and swim. Where does that come from? I think I've been blessed with a mum who has always told me that I can accomplish anything. And I think we've all had that person somewhere in our lives. It could be a teacher, or it could be a friend, or it could be a sports coach, or it could even be a chance encounter of someone you just have a light conversation with. But that person who says you actually have everything in you to do everything. And for me, I was very lucky that person was my mum. So I've always had a fearlessness around trying something. And if I didn't really quite know how to do it, that I would somehow find it within myself to learn how to do it. And so I think that's served me very well. And I'm very, very grateful for my mum for actually giving that to me.
Awesome.
So as Board of Girls in Tech, we know that you're fiercely passionate about helping women achieve financial independence and the role that this industry plays in that. Can you talk us through your why?
Sure. It's an incredible personal story, but I'm very happy to share it. I think it's part of why I love the fact that Girls in Tech is doing these interviews. First of all, I must say I've never, ever been motivated by money. So I think, some people are and some people aren't. I just never was. And so I almost did a reverse then, in that I almost judged people who valued money in a negative way. And I would see them as, focusing on the wrong things and having the wrong values. And then when my younger son, Cameron, was, I think, a year old, so it was 2008, something happened in my life that really changed that and challenged that. And, my husband had a construction company, and in 2008, the economy took a real downturn. And for those of us who are old enough to remember, it affected his business very badly, to the point where, we had to hand everything back to the bank. All our properties were bonded to the max, and our tenants were reneging on rental, and his business had to close. So with two very young children, I had to go through a voluntary sequestration, which really essentially means you don't have access to credit for 5 years. That's the time that it takes to reset your credit record. And I can look back on that time now, and I can actually talk about it with such happiness, because it taught me so much. And certainly the biggest thing for me was that we talk a lot when we're growing up. And when I was little, a lot of people spoke to me about my physical health. I had coaches who helped me with that. I know, Kay, you're a passionate sportswoman, so you'll resonate with that. People talk to you about mental health and about emotional health. Very few people talk to young girls around financial health. And so what happened for me in that experience was I actually started valuing financial wellness. And I started putting a value on it and understanding, actually, as a woman, it's so absolutely my responsibility to make sure my family are financially stable. And so for me, it's been one of my driving values for the past 5 years is to explore this and learn more about it. And I do think Girls in Tech, for example, is a brilliant vehicle to be able to just, let young girls who are going into the sector know that, yes, you're going into the workplace and you're going to be earning a salary. And is there some information you need to be thinking about around how that actually sets you up for the future of knowing how you want to secure yourself and your financial health? Small things like as soon as you start earning a salary, sorry, I think that was an alert on my laptop. As soon as you start earning... Sorry, what I was going to say is one of the best tips I got was as soon as you go on this journey, make sure you've got a 3 to 6 months pot of savings, because what it does when you're in a career is it just puts you into a place of not having to make decisions out of fear. And that's really changed the way I engage with my employers, my teams. It creates a very different dynamic.
Very good point. Yeah.
So
great.
That's my story.
What excites you most about the Girls in Tech chapter that we've launched in South Africa?
Well, this really, the storytelling element and the authentic connections that I think this organization has the potential to forge. I think storytelling at our very first board meeting was selected as an initial driver that we'd launched. I grew up in Mthatha, in what was the old Transkei, and went to an incredible school. It was a small town. It was Mthatha High School from pre-primary to matric. But in that area around Mthatha, there was, and there still are, a lot of schools that just don't have basic infrastructure. Windows, running water, things we take for granted. And I always thought to myself that those basic necessities, if we can figure out how to fix that, then we can figure out how to bring equal education to South Africa. In my last 7 years of being involved in the tech industry, my opinion has changed. And I now think if a young girl sitting in a rural area in South Africa has the opportunity to hear a story, and this story that just happens to be mine that we're recording in a small soundbite can be passed along in social media platforms, even just via WhatsApp, and a young girl has the opportunity to hear a story, it might not be mine, but there'll be someone's story that resonates with her. And then if she has access to stable internet connection or cheap, affordable data, there are so many courses available online. And so Girls in Tech in particular, if you ask me what am I most excited about, I think it's about how do we keep sharing these stories that hopefully will inspire someone, and then will mostly spark a bit of curiosity to go, well, I've never heard about this thing called a Scrum Master before. What is that? Let me go online and Google that. And that hopefully that could open up a whole world of opportunity to girls who just otherwise would never have heard about these jobs that are available.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people's stories, and people don't realize it, but a lot of people's stories are so inspirational to people that are young. You forget how little you knew when you were young and how one person's story can impact your thinking like that. So you're absolutely right. And I think for me, it's also a great part of being in Girls in Tech, being able to spread those stories. So as a last and passing question, so in terms of where we are now, 2020 has certainly been an interesting year. We have the COVID saga upon us, and it's completely unprecedented, I think, in terms of its impact on people and on business. So maybe you could share with us what your personal challenges and opportunities you've been faced with regards to your work environment with this COVID virus.
It's a great question. I think for me and my work life in particular, it's been an opportunity to just reflect on how lucky we are in this industry. My team in particular, which is an app development team, has already been working with a remote working philosophy for the greater part of the last 12 months. So I have, for example, 2 colleagues who are based in India, 1 colleague who's based in Mauritius. Last year, one of my colleagues needed to take a sabbatical to go and see his family in Colombia, and decided to stay a bit longer, so he just worked from Colombia. So we are really set up to be able to work from anywhere in the world. And the challenge for us, I think, is very different in the software development space to any other career, because I think our challenge is going to be, how do we take this dynamic of showing that we can work from anywhere and that we can deliver, and if anything, we're delivering, in my team certainly, even more than what I've seen before, because in the time that was spent commuting, I've now got messages coming in on Slack at 7 in the morning because they don't have to commute anymore. So I think the challenge is going to be when we start gradually phasing back into work, which must happen, and the economy must get stimulated again. I think we are going to have a challenge around saying, well, how do we do this in a responsible way? If we can work from home, if people in your organization can work from home, is there really a need to rush them back to the office so quickly? And I think that's an interesting dialogue to be having at an executive level across all businesses in South Africa, is to let a team deliver, and to not see it as this must now come to an end once lockdown is finished. Be responsible around the phasing for that.
Yeah.
And then
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I think on that point, I think it's more around looking at an outcomes-based relationship with employees rather than, this is your job and this is where you sit, and
yes.
this is what work you'll do. It's what are your outcomes.
Yeah, and I look
doesn't matter where you are.
Teachers, for example, who've never had to get used to these tools. I just think they're brilliant how they've adapted so quickly. And all of us on this call have young children, and I think we've all felt the strain of having children at home, working online and trying to juggle multiple roles. But I'd really like to just give a shout out to teachers and say that I think the fact that they're learning is fantastic. And to just use all the tech that's available, because I think that's the big take home for me around the opportunity with COVID-19, is that I think it is a way of the world realizing that tech is not an isolated little sector where the 3 of us happen to work because we're involved with Girls in Tech. Tech is actually going to go across every single business, every single sector, and it's just an enabler. It's just a tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do I make life easier? And my parting shot there is, you don't have to be a techie to be in tech. Tech needs facilitators, designers, testers, and developers. But it's available to everybody in terms of a place to work. And clearly, I hopefully am coming across that shows that I love it.
Absolutely. And I'm also very grateful that you don't have to be techie to be in tech, because otherwise I wouldn't be in this industry either. So I'm completely on your page. So I think on that note, Monique, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, and thanks for sharing some very private stories with us. I think, Nicole, it's been really interesting for us to chat to you, and wishing you all the best for the rest of our time in lockdown.
Thanks very much, Claire. Thanks, Nicole. Stay well.
Thanks, ladies.